And we're back here once again with another episode of the MSK show. And this is going to be episode 201. So I hope you guys had a great day. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend that is ahead of you. And in this episode of the MSK show, I am going to be having a conversation with John's Longbox. This is going to be his second appearance on this show. He is the second guest with the second appearance. So the first one was Mugen Lord, which is crazy because usually I always have white guys making multiple appearances on the show. But turns out this time around it was a black guy who wanted to be around.
You don't know.
My dad.
I'm Sicilian. We all saw True Romance.
Oh, crap. So I just want to let you guys know this before we start getting into, the show and start talking about a whole bunch of different things as far as like comics and as far as like, things going on in the real world, actually. The MSK show, as far as like a panel show happening on Saturday, is no longer going to be happening because it is just very hard to get people on a panel show consistently for Saturday. So the MSK show normally is going to run Monday, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Friday, with Saturdays and Sundays just pretty much being either if I don't have an MSK show set up for like a one-on-one, or sometimes I would just have a show with like Professor Savage Dad. Sometimes on Sunday, if he's free, then Saturday you will normally just see me stream League of Legends, playing that. And then on Sunday, I would just have the Cloud9 podcast with Mr. Blanks. And I think it's good to take some weekends off. I haven't had a Saturday off from a podcast in forever. So, kind of switching it up is always good. So there's a lot we can actually go into. I think the biggest one coming up recently that you had happened for you was that you finished fulfillment for Heroic Tales #1. So we're going to talk about that. Then we'll go into like the mindset and process for, Heroic Tales issue #2. So we'll just start it here. After doing it all, so you finally did it. You finally fulfilled your own comic book.
It's been fulfilled now since December.
Yeah.
So that was fun. I actually enjoyed the fulfillment process. I did everything soup to nuts. I wrote the story. Renzo drew it. Ron Mosicki drew the other half. Mm-hmm. Oscar Carano and Daniel De La Silva colored it, and Bill Williams lettered it. And then I had other help with like pre-press and stuff like that. But and then I got boxes of comics mailed here from Comics Wellspring. They were awesome because I was panicking, calling them up, when's it going to deliver, and once I got the boxes, I just got calm. I sat in this chair. I bought like a Rollo printer. I got a scale over here, and I had my laptop in front of me so I could work two computers, and this way I had email, and I just became like a fulfillment machine. The only problem was as a construction worker, I get like 6 to 8 weeks off a year. It's like,
I know. Yeah, the vacation time is very spread out. Yeah.
So depending upon the worst year I think was 12 weeks, and this year last year it was 8 weeks. But I was planning on taking time off to just do nothing but fulfill. But I got into that car accident, broke my neck, and I used all my time off. You know what I mean? So I was working and then coming home and fulfilling. I was up to like 10 o'clock every night, just like my wife. I was eating right here in this chair. It took like 3 weeks, and I got into it so much that when it was over, I was like, what do I do now? When you're doing the same thing for 3 weeks straight and all of a sudden you're finished. I was like kind of lost for a week. It was, what do I do? Like I didn't read comics, I didn't watch TV. I came home from work, took a shower, sat in this chair and fulfilled until bedtime. But I'm glad I did it. It was good. I'll probably do it again because I'm not making hundreds of thousands of dollars, so I gotta save as much money as I can. If you get a fulfillment service, you gotta pay for it, and just rightly so. So, I mean,
what are you talking about? Isn't there like some DEI program for you can apply for some sort of grant so you can get the fulfillment service to pay you off?
I'm sure there is, but for some reason, patriarchs don't get it.
Which is crazy because I'm pretty sure you guys saw that long 4 or 5 paragraph essay comment dropped on my comic book YouTube channel. So if anyone doesn't know, from my comic book YouTube channel, the reason why it's separate from this channel is because I feel like when you talk about comics and manga and stuff like that, I feel like it really does have to be its own separate thing from like movies and television and all that stuff, right? And this person said it was constructive criticism, and for the most part, I thought it was fine, as whatever. You know, it's someone's first time watching the channel, so I wasn't thinking anything of it. But he said something that I've heard several times over that I'll just never understand. The person said, it doesn't sound like you read comic books. And if anyone does, just point it out, guys, to do your research on someone. If you go to my comic book channel, you scroll down. My second video on the channel is me, Anti-Liberal, Vagabond, and Savage Dad reviewing Eric July's ISOM #1. That's the second video, because I wanted that to be the second video, because I want it to be a welcome video to be first. Like, hey, this is my journey in comics. This is what I'm here to do. This is like my mission and all that stuff. I never got this understanding that I don't read comic books. I mean, you can just look at my background. They're full of books. Yeah, stuff I haven't even read, stuff I want to read, stuff I want to just review myself without having people next to me. I'll never get this notion that I don't read comic books. I mean, yeah, apparently we just sit on this show and talk about comic books literally in detail. But
the funny thing is, if you're going to fake something, why would you pick comic books?
And waste the money buying them. You know how much money I spend on comic books? A lot.
Fake sports, fake movies, they have larger audiences. Like, if you're gonna fake
movies, you can easily fake it. Movies, you can fake it so easily. Yeah,
right. You know what I mean? And you'll get more audience talking about Snow White than you're gonna get talking about DMZ issue 6. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
We most comic book people don't even care about most comic books. Like, most comic book people care about a handful of comics.
Yeah, you know? And most comic book people, from what I figured out, really go into these like sections of, some would say tribes, right? Some people are just only Marvel. Some people are just only DC.
Very tribal. That's a good word.
Some people are now just only independent, nothing Marvel, DC. Some people I heard are just Image. They just only do Image comic books. Yeah. Nothing else matters to them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's normal. It's, you know, it's human beings are tribal. You know what I mean? Like, growing up, my father said it was all the Italians. And then a couple blocks away, there was all the Irish, you know what I mean? And now nobody really, he says it was bad back then. You know, my father married an Irish woman, and an Italian man married an, oh my God, you know, and now we don't even think about that. But, you know, it's all, what do you like? I was a Marvel guy. My buddy Mike growing up was a DC guy, and I used to bust his chops on, you know, oh, you like the Legion of Superheroes, Bouncing Boy, Matter Eater Lad? And he was like, shut up, you know. But, you know, now, I like comics. There's some I don't like, but, you know, I can understand the tribalism is what I'm pontificating about.
Yeah, it's one of these things where, like, I told people this, and I don't know how to really get it to people's heads at all. I buy comics and I read them and I review them, even manga. Even though we're gonna eventually get to that on the channel anyway.
Comics you don't like?
I would always like to even go through them, because maybe even in comic books that I wouldn't particularly, maybe not be my style or I would enjoy, I would still want to never lock myself down on one genre. Like, we just went through and read Bug Wars issue #1, which is written by Jason Aaron. That's his new Image comic book miniseries he did. Very good so far, just for the first issue that I read. Like, I don't want to ever be tied down just like one style of comic book.
Right. Well, I'm not. Yeah, I mean, I've been branching out. Like, this is the kind of comic I never would have read. You know, I'm reading these back issues of DMZ. It's like a political thing about Civil War in America. Like, for most of my life, comic books were superhero. But, you know, I'm liking it, even though it's different. So I'm not saying like pigeonhole yourself. But if I wrote, you know, the next issue, I mean, if I read the next issue of Superman and I didn't like it, I don't want to do a review on it. I mean, this is just me personally, because there's enough negativity and hate on the internet, and, you know, so I did 2 reviews of comics that, well, I take it back. I did 3 reviews of comics that I didn't like, and I didn't feel good talking about it. You know what I mean? I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, even if they're super successful. I don't want to hurt their feelings. But at the same time, you know, so a few people, like, they know, like, if I got a comic and I didn't review it, chances are I didn't get to it yet, or chances are I didn't like it. You know, and if you ask me directly, I'll give you an answer. But, you know, I'm not trying to dodge it. But I don't know. It's just a personal preference. The reason why I brought it up, I was just watching Michael Bancroft, Waiting for You, and Michael Bancroft said the same thing. He doesn't like doing reviews of comics that he doesn't like. Which is why he never saw Heroic Tales on his channel, I guess.
So for me, I think it boils down to a lot of different things. I personally believe if you are buying someone's stuff, whether it be an independent, whether you're buying it from a major publisher, technically you're buying from the shop because they already, the system, they already ordered it anyway. I feel like as a customer, if you want things to technically get better, or if you want things to kind of improve, I think it's kind of imperative you kind of give your opinion on something that you may or may not have enjoyed the best, because that way I wouldn't say to always do it if you're not comfortable doing it. I would say, like, if you have an actual thing to say about why this doesn't work for you,
okay, I agree with you. First off, if you paid for the comic, you have a legitimate right to criticize it. I don't like people that didn't read the comics, that didn't buy the comics. That's a whole other conversation. But if you bought the comic, you're allowed to say you didn't like. But even the 3 times that I didn't like the comic, I tried to be positive about it. I didn't want to be like, oh, just the MSK is a jerk and his comic sucks. That's not helpful. I try to keep it as constructive criticism, and I try not to be maybe I failed a few times, but I try not to be personal about it. Like this fat, ugly guy whose politics I don't like made a comic book. You know what I mean? Like that has nothing to do with the comic. So a few people
Mark Wade a lot.
I got a couple of good reviews for my comic, and to be honest, the good reviews were just they like me, which is nice and flattering, but it doesn't help me as a guy making comics. And then I got a couple of people that didn't like my comic, and they didn't like me. So you know what I mean? It does that. So like it doesn't help. So I'll watch bad criticism.
Yeah,
and
crazy
bad criticism that I actually watched the whole thing, and I messaged. I said I agree with everything you said, and they're like, what?
It was your motto that I was thinking about a long time ago before I even started my comic book channel, where your motto is like, it's all about comic books. Because I feel like
you're that recent. For some reason I thought you were doing this before me.
Crazy. Because Graham, it was yours.
So I was on your channel at your very beginning then.
No, that was the Iron Man podcast. That's when I was doing it only on Rumble for a little bit there, because I had that thing going with YouTube.
You weren't doing it before me, just in a different format or
So I remember it was your slogan that you had, which was it's all about comic books. And then recently, you know how Graham Nolan kind of blew up on Twitter for that Absolute Bane design that came out, and then he, in a follow-up tweet, basically wrote, if people had this much passion and frustration about the industry, then we wouldn't be in this kind of spot. And I was thinking to myself, I think that is the direct reason why comic books haven't had that level of success. And it's, it's a myriad of different factors, but I do think it's due to a lot of fans feeling like indifferent at voicing how they feel. This is just me personally. I feel whether you like it or hate it, or you're indifferent, because most people sometimes are just indifferent. They just found it kind of middling. I feel like you should, as a passionate comic book fan, kind of throw your opinion out there, because, you might be the one opinion or several that the creator looks at and goes, okay, this person isn't some deranged weirdo. Person actually does kind of care. Let me kind of see where this person's coming from, because it's crazy. It's like if you were to go to a restaurant, you got served some bad food and the chef just kind of made a mistake. You probably just asked the chef, hey, I didn't really like this. Can I get this redone? It's like the whole saying of closed mouths don't get fed. If you don't actually voice how you feel, then I don't really feel like you're really kind of putting your best effort as a fan.
I do not disagree in the slightest. You make a really good, valid points. Yeah, if I'm going to criticize a 20-year-old Marvel comic, that's one thing. You know what I mean? Right. Everybody got paid. Chances are those creators aren't even around anymore. Things like that. But if I buy a comic from one of my buddies and I don't like it, I don't want to tear it apart. You know what I mean? It just
that's the difference, right? That's why indie comics is always weird. When you came into this, because I don't think anyone realized this. Let's say I reviewed. So the next comic book we're going to review, I think it's Aliens versus Predator, Aliens versus Avengers #2. It's a new crossover with like Marvel and Aliens and all that stuff. It's easy for us to review something from Jonathan Hickman or fucking Mark Waid. We don't know them. There is no attachment to them.
Yeah, they got movie deals. We're not going to make and break them. We're not going to end their careers. Yeah.
What I found out in the indie scene is because what you had just said, which is is true. Everyone kind of knows each other in some weird love and hate I really hate you, I really love you, parasocial kind of way. So like people, even though they say they won't take it personally, they always do, because it's not even that they even want to take it personally. That's just a natural human instinct. That's just what we do. Like we're just emotional as people. When women are more emotional, but guys in the space be like, no, I'm fine with criticism. No, guys, I've seen too many people that say that and they are not fine with criticism in the slightest. And keep in mind, comic books take a lot of work to do. Yeah. Like there's a lot of work going into it.
Miss Sparkles over here says people get upset about criticism. I try not to get upset about criticism. Like I said, before I even started, I started working, I wrote my script, and Brian hates when I say this story, but Brian Bao, who does Wolf and Batsy comic, a wonderful comic, I sent him the script, and he tore it apart, basically saying, this isn't good. He goes, I don't care. There's nothing for me to get invested in, because it was world building the comic. And I was thinking, I don't know if I'm going to get to issue number 2. I want everybody to see how cool my world is and blah, blah, and he was just like, there's no hook here. There's no character. You got to get a character. And I'm like, I got mad, but I listened to him and I threw it out and I rewrote the script, and I toned it way down to the point I wonder, like, are people even going to get the little things that I threw in the book, because the world building is so light? But anyway, criticism. Like, and then somebody criticized my pacing. I'm trying to remember who it was, and I totally agree. Like most of it, I agree with. But some of it was just like, I don't like this guy. This guy's a jerk. He doesn't like the comic book that I like. I'm in camp A and he's in camp B, so therefore I can't like it. That to me is, I don't know. That's weird.
I always take those as not criticism. Those are just disingenuous, I think, people. Because like, if your sole thing, it's like, that viral clip that Scott Jennings went on for CNN, and he basically like scolded that CNN panel for like what you just said, basically. Like, Trump will say something and like 80% of people will agree with it, but then there's that 20% that just have to disagree with him, even though they know he's right, just because it's him. That's what those people kind of fall into that category of. They have to just not like it because they don't like you, and it's like that's not even fair.
It's the, what do they call that? The sunken cost fallacy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like, I see you got a Ripper hat, and I'm in no way going to start a Ripper. But some people they're not going to like it because it says Ripper, because they're totally invested in hating Ripper, and some people are gonna like it because they're. And then people like me, I'm gonna, I wasn't too crazy about the first 2 Isom comics, and I noped out. But I'm not crazy Ripper detractor, But my buddy said Horseman was great. So
it is. It's probably the best book they've released so far, like by far. And to be fair,
first off, it's Chuck Dixon. So
Chuck Dixon wrote it, and he's pretty. I heard he's pretty good at writing comic books.
I'm officially his buddy. He sent me some comics, and it said my buddy. So
Here's crazy, man. Can you get him to come on the show? I think we're friends on Facebook, and I messaged him and he just left me on red. I didn't think I was serious about comic books.
If you catch him at a bad moment, he doesn't respond. If he's not interested, he doesn't respond. So a couple of times, because he's been on my channel a few times, and we had a lot of fun. I mean, laughing and joking, like wiping our eyes laughing. He's such a funny guy, such a cool guy. And a couple times he just doesn't respond. But Bruno Bookstore is I'll send you. Remind me. I'll send you a DM of he puts it out at the end of all his videos. But the best way to get
if you can DM him and be like, hey, this guy MSK is legit. He's not.
No, don't DM him. Send him an email at brunobookstore@gmail.com. There you go.
Okay, got you. Okay,
that's the best way to get him, because sometimes he responds like immediately. You're like, what the hell was he waiting for? And then most of the time he does. The guy's busy. The guy's got kids. The guy's writing 900 comics. He's got hobbies. So, and like your boy Zach, who works with Chuck Dixon, says that he goes, sometimes I just don't hear from Chuck. He doesn't respond to emails. That's
and that guy's went off the fucking deep end recently. That guy's deranged. That one actually deranged. That guy's a weirdo.
That one
It was
actually
crazy how you said back in the day you were his inside man, and I told you this too. I saw part of his video back in the day. I told you back in the day I was more of a lurker. I saw part of one of his videos. I always knew something was off about that guy. He never looked stable at all. I don't know how he ever got that big. Honestly,
he got big because he said what needed to be said at
that moment in time. Yeah,
the right time.
Yeah,
and I always thought he was fair, and I liked him because he said what I was thinking in a much more eloquent way than I did. Like, because a few times, because at the time I was working at the George Washington Bridge, so I was spending a lot of time driving. It was like almost a 2-hour drive to work and a 2-hour drive home. So I would just put on him and EVS, and I had all this time to listen to him, and I just really appreciated it. And I was sending him inside information, from what I used to be the electrician over at Marvel Comics. So I was like, telling them about how the office worked and things like that. It was fun. I really enjoyed it. But I only felt I unsubscribed him because for the same reason I don't want to listen to somebody talk about how much they hate Eric July for a year and a half. It's like, okay, I get it. You didn't like that restaurant. You told me you didn't like the restaurant. And I don't want to talk about that restaurant for 6 months.
Yeah. You know what's crazy? People have accused me of being whatever they call a ripetard. I don't know if people have watched the videos we put out on Eric's books. We actually gave him a fair bit of, praise when it was due, but we also criticized many different aspects of it. A big aspect in the Rippaverse that isn't good is the villains. I feel like the villains have been fairly lackluster in most of it, outside of like recent books. Because you read ISO #1. It was Darian Fontano, which I thought he created a pretty solid villain for his first book, but every villain after that was just not good. And up until you had like Horseman, which had pretty solid villains for what it is, and then you had Bloodroot #1, which is pretty solid. Like Eric recently messed up on having a double page spread in Bloodroot #1, and I noticed it when I read the book. I was like, this should be a double page spread, because you notice when double page spreads would go on a comic when you have a big moment that you want to emphasize in the audience what they want to convey from it. And he even mentioned he thought it was an artistic way of doing it, but he made a mistake. And it's like, we've criticized him on comic books here, but we're not doing it in a way like you said, where it's fucking deranged. Like, no one wants to hear a deranged weirdo talk for 8 hours. Like, no one wants to hear AOC go off because she's retarded. She's actually just stupid. Like, you don't think of her as going like, man, I really want to go and listen to AOC talk. It's like, I don't. I'd rather hang myself than watch that. Listen to that bitch.
Like I said, there's 3 comics that I criticized. And I said my piece. I said bad, I didn't like them, and I said my piece, and I moved on. It's dwelling on it is what drives me crazy. And if it's honest, and if are you trying to help or are you trying to destroy? Because if you're trying to destroy, I don't want to hear your criticism. You know what I mean? If you're trying to help because you generally like comics, that's fine. That's fine. But like I said, a couple of people reviewed my comics. They want to destroy it. What do I want to listen to that for? If you're trying to help me, it's kind of wrong for me not to listen.
Also, what's crazy is that I don't know. I've come up with so many conspiracy theories in my head. I'd be some crazy comic winger, actually, at this point. Some of these people I can tell, I don't even believe are comic book fans. What I think happened was that they were watching their favorite content creator talk about comic books.
Absolutely.
And they have opinions on comic books from their favorite content creator at that moment in time, because this is the way they speak about them. Like, if I told people about comic books, I would tell you things I don't know. I'd be like, hey, I don't know this. I don't know this part of history. I'm just honest like that. Some people say that they're fans of comic books. They don't post any pictures about them. You don't see their shelves. They just don't talk about literally anything at all regarding comic books, but they'll only talk about like drama related aspects to comic books. And it's like, are you actually a comic book fan, or are you just some person that just likes the aspect of liking comic books?
Right. I think the 2 big camps have a lot of people like that right now, that there's people that they only buy their comics from their guy. That's all they know. And I remember back when I was working in a comic book store, back in the way dark ages of the 80s, there was a comic. Everything was superhero stuff like that, but the indie craze was coming, and there was a Chester Brown was an up and coming guy. And Chester Brown did really bizarre comics, and he wrote a comic called The Playboy, and it's about every boy has this, where they literally find some porno magazines in the woods. So Chester Brown, as a kid, finds a stack Playboys, and it's all about how him and his friends were fighting over these Playboys and stuff. Back because this story was set in the 70s. Back then, you didn't have access to all this stuff. So it was a funny story, little twisted, but different. But it wasn't the X-Men, it wasn't Spider-Man. And one of the customers said, "Oh wow, if every comic was like this, I would be into comics." And the owner said, "Well, then why don't you buy more comics like this?" And then another customer said, "Oh, this was the best comic I've ever read." And the owner said, "Well, how many comics have you read?" "Just this." And the store owner goes, "What a coincidence that the only comic book you've ever read was the best comic book you've ever read." And that's why I look at and I'm purposely being vague about the two camps because I'm not trying to start drama myself. But what a coincidence that your team makes the best comic books you've ever, and you just got into comics. And what a coincidence that guy makes the worst comics you've never read, and you just got, all right, tell me about the Legion of Superheroes, the Great Darkness saga then, since you're so, and then what are you talking about? These are great comics. Tell me about Mac Raboy's Captain Marvel Jr. run. What's your favorite? You know what I mean? Like, so let's talk comics. You're into comics, right? Oh, you only read this guy's 3 comics. You only read that guy's 4 comics. What a coincidence. But I appreciate the enthusiasm, but like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm totally into movies, and I've only watched John Wick. Everything else sucks. I don't know.
It's one of those things where I don't even have an issue with someone kind of starting out and growing their portfolio of comic books that they read,
right?
Because it takes time to really hone in on, like, just like with movies, what kind of movies you like. But when someone claims to be all this, that, and the third, and you just see just how they act, it's like for as much criticism people have, like let's say Rippaverse, right? All of that frustration, all that, you would think like, man, you should be channeling that at Marvel and DC. They're the one that kind of ruined the industry, for being completely honest here. You don't channel it at them. It's like, you do know that this is random indie comic book company. It's not going to really change the needle in anything. It's not moving shit. They're going to do their own thing. They're going to be profitable in their own way. And it's like, I feel like the attention is just so misplaced. It's like Eric July can do nothing to move the needle in comics. He can't save the industry. And he wasn't even trying to, which is more like he just wants to do his own thing. That's all it really was, you know? Like, people don't know, Marvel, since that company you don't criticize, it just came out recently that Marvel Comics, in this year, 2025, still pays people less than minimum wage in most places for working for them, as far as like writing. Artists might be a little bit more, maybe a little more.
A guy who made 1 comic book so far, making a 2nd comic book, have people on my team that said, I'd rather work for you than Marvel. You pay instantly.
Remember that old Power Rangers story where the Power Rangers, like, it was just Jason, Trini, and Zach, the one who the Black, Yellow, and Red Ranger. They're like, I want to work for Power Rangers because I make less than working at McDonald's. Guys, there's Marvel writers right now working there that make less than people that work at Starbucks, Five Guys, Subway, Panda Express, McDonald's, every fast food place you can think of. They make less than them. You could make more money and have a career doing fast food than working at Marvel Comics. And these people on crazy sites on some of these comic book places think that going after a random indie comic book publisher is going to do anything. And it's like, what is wrong with you people? Marvel Comics, still to the same year 2025, is paying people less than minimum wage. Are you out of your minds? And you don't care because you're not comic book fans. You don't actually care. You just fighting this imaginary wars in your head of shit that doesn't matter. Literally, a guy, I forgot his name, went on Twitter. Everyone saw it. He bashed Marvel and literally gave him the middle finger and said, fuck you. Your wages are too low. Why don't people talk bad about Marvel? Oh, wait a minute. Some people out there literally just want to suck off every single Marvel writer and artist.
Well, they work for Marvel because they think that that's the doorway into Hollywood.
Right. Yeah.
They think that their story is going to get adapted. But you know what? You're going to make the next Ghost Rider and like what's his name? Friedrich. And then you're going to spend 30 years suing Marvel because they don't pay you. You know what I mean?
Remember that one. Yeah.
You're going to be Simon. I almost
was it Jack Kirby had to like sue Marvel for stuff? Yeah. I forgot what it was. He had to sue Marvel. God.
Miss Sparkles, by the way, is my favorite commenter in the world because she keeps saying, "So what's his comic? What's his comic? Can I bring up my comic?"
Yeah, sure.
So this is my trailer. I'm gonna play the trailer if that's okay.
That's fine.
So that's the trailer for my comic. It's Heroic Tales 2. It's live right now on Fund My Comic. We launched yesterday on Michael Bancroft's, and we're doing pretty good. It was supposed to be an anthology series. Every issue was going to debut a different character in my world, and then the team was going to form. I was going to introduce 10 heroes, and then issue 10 they were going to. But everybody liked the Patriarch, so the Patriarch is going to be my flagship character. And he's going to make an appearance. He's going to have a story. And then the second story is going to be a different character. So I'm introducing Mary Sue. And Mary Sue is perfect. And where do you go when you're already perfect? Well, you get perfect-er. So it's kind of goofing on, like, Scarlet Witch is the most powerful super. So she's ultimately powerful, but she doesn't want to use her powers. And I don't want to explain it without giving it away, but she could rewrite possibilities in real time, but it's like the butterfly effect. If she changes this, different outcomes, and maybe by tweaking this it makes it actually worse. So I'm kind of goofing on the idea of being all powerful but not wanting to use your power. So that's Mary Sue. This is her origin story, and then it's a flip book. So I know this is a little confusing, but see, it has two covers. Well, I didn't want to gouge anybody. You know what I mean? Like, I have 4 covers, but I only have 2 comics because the comic book is flipped over. So you get the regular cover one way, and then you get the Patriarch facing you. And when you're done with the story, you turn the comic upside down and you could read the Mary Sue story. So whatever one you like best is the one you put in your comic book long box facing you, or better yet, buy 2 copies and then put them both in. That'll help me out. But, so it's $10 shipping, and then if you want to get both of them, it's $20 shipping. I'm not gouging anybody on the price. It's going to be about 40 pages. There's going to be a letters page if you want to write. There's going to be some fake ads, and it was well received the first issue, but this one is so much better. I mean, just look at this is the variant cover, Jose Garcia, and this is Josh Howard, who does Dead at 17. This is a cosplay cover. This is a holdover. I just got these pictures the other day, so we didn't finish making the cover yet. So this is Martina Marcota, Lady Alchemy. She did some modeling, and I was like, we got to use this as a cover. So we're working on that. But look at this interior art. It's good. This is Renzo Rodriguez, and this is Daniel De La Silva Rodriguez coloring it. That's the team that's going to be doing the Patriarch, and then this is Renzo Rodriguez and Oscar Carano. They're going to be coloring Mary Sue, and it's just so good. It's just so good.
It's going to take 5 years to come out because quality.
Are you kidding me? I'm actually ahead of the schedule. I might actually ship this. My last comic, Heroic Tales 1, came out 3 weeks late. I'm a little embarrassed by that, but I had a rookie mistake. I mixed up some files. So I had to pull it from production schedule and resubmit it, and that caused me to go to the bottom of the printing list. But I couldn't have the printing error go in. So that was my fault. It's only 3 weeks late, considering everything I went through making this comic. People tend to be a little forgiving. I was in a car accident, whatever. But this one, we are about, I'm going to say, like 55 to 60% finished already. I'm at the point where I have an editor just looking for typos. We're going to clean up typos. I'm waiting in the last minute to do the letters page. So if anybody wants to put in a letter, email at heroicmails@yahoo.com, and you could have a letter put in the comic. These are add-ons you can get: a Patriarch coin, a Mary Sue coin, a challenge coin, the T-shirt that I'm wearing now, and I must Master Swag. My wife just came down before to ask me what I was doing. I was like, I'm about to go live right now. And she goes, that shirt looks great on you. It's very slimming. So, guys, my wife, married 25 years, told me that I look good in the shirt, guys.
Not biased at all.
And this is the Mary Sue shirt. I still got pint glasses with the Patriarch symbol on it, and card sets. You can get all the cards. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So this is the card set from issue 1. There were free giveaways with issue 1, but now you got to buy them. So it's $10 for the 7 cards, and now I'm giving away cards for issue 2. They're in production right now, and then when issue 3 comes out, I'm gonna have 2 sets because there's 20 cards, set A and set B, and so here's the the stretch goal cards. I'll be releasing this, but how exciting is this? I got original art from Renzo. I'm gonna scroll up. So obviously it's original art from issue 1, but the Boss Boxy, the Patriarch fighting Dr. Robug, Mal. This character, something about a dangerous redhead. People like, is she going to show up again? I had no intentions of showing. Now I have such a good story. It's actually a pretty scary story about her. This is the first page. This is from another comic that Renzo did, but he sent me a big bundle of all of his artwork. So why not? This is the artwork for the Patriarch card. I am so tempted to buy this myself. The Robug card. I love this. I love it. And this is a page from Coney Waves. I had nothing to do with Coney Waves, but why not? Why not? Why not? Why not sell it? This is from Coney Waves also, the Dracula, the vampire story. This is a furry critter. I don't know the name of this comic, but my wife loves this. So I might have to buy that for my wife. And this is the Patriarch smashing Robug's giant scorpion. More fighting Robug. Sexy ladies. Renzo likes to draw ladies, So it's funny because everybody's like, you got Renzo drawing your comic, you got to sex it up. So that's why the first 2 pages are kind of sexed up, but we don't show anything. So it's more suggestive than anything else. So there you go. So Heroic Tales is it features the Patriarch, whose shirt I'm wearing right now. I got really tired of everybody talking about toxic masculinity, and I'm a construction worker. We do masculine stuff all day long. My dad was a cool guy, so I wanted to make a comic book character that embraced everything positive about masculinity. So he's a father, he's a husband, he's a superhero, he's a protector, he's a farmer, he's a provider, he loves it. To him, the best thing that he could do is to spend the day with his wife and kids. He's not cheating on his wife. He's not Omni-Man. He's not secretly plotting. He wants to spend time with him. He loves his wife. His wife loves him. They get disappointed because he takes off to do the right thing. She understands, but she's not like, oh man, if the Cosby Show. I mean, there's problems with the Cosby Show for obvious reasons. But if you ever watch the Cosby Show now, she was just so mean to her husband. Like I couldn't watch it back even when. They don't do that. They might bicker because they're human, but they love each other. The kids are gonna have problems because that's the way it is. There's 7 kids. There's gonna be problems. Like in the comic, that they live off the grid because supervillains. I'm trying not to spoil it. So that's problems. Like there's 7. The oldest son is just like, Dad, am I a prisoner on the farm? Can I leave the farm? You know what I mean? That's a story that I want to work on. What do you do then? Because the Patriarch this is on track to do well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spin the Patriarch off to his own comic. So it's going to be Patriarch number 1, and I'm going to do his origin. And then issue 2.
How many times does the necklace have to drop? How many times do those pearls have to hit the ground?
Oh yeah. Well, I didn't tell the Patriarch story, but one of the things I do let people know is his origin is public. It happened in public, so people know his secret identity. He doesn't have a secret identity; he has a public identity. So he is hiding his family. Not hiding them literally like in a cave, but they're off.
Not Diddy.
But so that's going to cause problems. Like, the oldest kid is 19 years old. It's like, never had a girlfriend, he's living on the farm, kind of thing. And he's, and he's like a country yokel, he'll fix your tractor. He'll milk the cows and, work in the field. And then he's going to go to college and he's going to be just like a naive hayseed, but that'd be very intelligent. But that's
you're going to use the Marvel Comics route of going to a number 1 immediately after Heroic Tales number 2. That's smart. Right. If they can always relaunch and renumber, Why
Oh
can't
yeah,
we?
every issue is number one. Every issue is number one.
Legacy numbering. You had to put Hero Tales legacy numbering on it too.
I you know it. I didn't when I
Legacy of
started
2
my
books.
YouTube channel. I didn't think I was going to last this long. I didn't think I was going to make a comic. I didn't think people, I was hoping people would like my characters. So I didn't think, I thought I was just going to do Heroic Tales. That was going to be my only and every issue, I was going to debut another hero, come back to the hero when I had a story to tell. But people like, no, people like the patriarch. You got to follow it up. You got to strike while the iron is hot. And I'm like, you're right. So okay. I think I could do patriarch and then Heroic Tales, patriarch, Heroic Tales. You know what I mean? Like I don't think
the origin story other title going to be going? Is it like a 3-issue miniseries kind of thing, or is it like going to be an ongoing thing?
It'll be an ongoing. But here's another thing. Thank you for making me think of this. Every issue is complete, so you don't need to buy 40 comics to get one story. Like Heroic Tales #1 has 2 complete stories in it. Heroic Tales 2 has 2 complete stories in it. Now, if you get Heroic Tales 3, it's going to have part 2 to Mary Sue's story, but you know what I mean? It's a complete story as it, because let's face it, in crowdfunding, I don't have a consistent schedule yet. I can't promise to make a comic every 6 months. I can't promise to make a comic every year. So I want you, and I want you to get this comic and be like, I paid $10 and this is a satisfying read. You know what I mean? Oh, there's another one? Cool. Oh, that's another set. Oh, there's a foreshadowing in this that I didn't get. I'm trying to set something up so that by Heroic Tales 5, everybody's going to be like, oh my God, he planned that from the beginning. You know what I mean? So, but you could still enjoy every issue on its own. So that's what I want to do. I want to make it so that it's it's supposed to be Marvel Comics from the Bronze Age, meaning 80s and early 90s. So like, if you saw the patriarch's wife talking to him from the shower, if you got comics in the 80s and 90s, you saw Mary Jane like that. You saw Starfire from the Teen Titans. So also keep in mind, I'm going to put some word balloons to obfuscate it a little bit more. So if it didn't happen in the 80s, I'm not putting it in my comics. So there's going to be no real nudity. There's going to be comic book violence, maybe a little bit more than the 80s now that I think about it, but it's not going to be horror movie, just spines being ripped out and gore. I'm trying to make it so PG-13, PG-13, not R and not G. So there you go. That's. I'm also looking at the chat. Miss Sparkles has a lot of things to say. Thank you. And Logic Finest here. Thank you.
Yeah, we have some comments here.
Yeah, a lot of comments. Wow, I was talking so long, and guys,
That's fine.
No, I got a shill.
I was just telling people, like, you guys, I mean, I understand supporting your local comic book store to buy comic books. I fully get that. But people don't know how bad Marvel Comics treats people. You're living under a rock, or you're just delusional, or you know of what's going on, but you would like to be someone that just says nice things about Marvel, hoping that one day you might get sponsored by them to have them send you books. There are people that I watch that I don't hate. I enjoy their content a lot, but I never really see them kind of go in on certain companies because they get books sent to them. And it's like, oh, come on, man. You're a sellout. I get it. It pays the bills, but don't do that. These stories are trash and you're trying to sell me this shit. But I tell people this. You might like new comic books too, because one person saying they don't like a new comic book doesn't mean shit to you. It shouldn't, unless that opinion really matters to you. You should always, in my opinion, read something and see if you enjoy it, rather than maybe basing what you may or may not like on what someone else says. That's what I've always said. Nick, what's up, man? He says, when one door closes, another one opens. It sounds like my wife's butthole when she goes and has sex with Tyrone. Zach Tan, what's up, man? How are you doing? Common Miss Sparkles L. That's just all it is. Hi, Matt Barr. How you doing, man? You spit any bars tonight? No, sorry. I had to do the joke. Sorry, man. John got me to read my Spider-Man book containing the story of the first 12 issues of Spider-Man. Oh, good old Stan Lee, Steve Ditko. Oh, God. Man.
Masterclass comics.
Did you know an amazing fantasy? I can't read. I'm black. CNN was right. Did you know an amazing fantasy? Spider-Man didn't have a hyphen. It came when the first issue of Amazing Spider-Man came out. I always just spell Spider-Man without the hyphen. I think it looks better.
And also, in Spider-Man #1, they called him Peter Palmer instead of Peter Parker.
Oh, also the famous "great responsibility" saying it didn't come from Uncle Ben. It came from a narrator, from what I know.
Right.
Is that true?
It came in the narration box, which is, to me, I always read those in Stan Lee's voice.
Yeah, people think it's Uncle Ben. That's not.
Well, it's a good for the movies. You're not gonna have it unless unless you got what's his name narrating it. Why can't I think of his name? But you gotta have a character say these things. What's that?
Imagine Morgan Freeman narrating that.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Oh God. People want hug boxes, and I think that doesn't help stories get better. But the issue here now is people just only are fans of the person itself. I don't think they're even reading all these indie books because, first of all, they don't get them. So how would you read books you're not getting? And I think even when they do get them and read them, they don't talk about them because they probably didn't think
I've heard pros saying it doesn't matter if so and so's comic is good or not. You've been watching their content. He's been entertaining you for so long. Just buy the comic to support them, whether you like it or not. And I'm like, no.
Yes and no, maybe. I don't know. That's a weird one. It's like because that technically you're guilting the customer to supporting it because it's just you, but you're not supporting the actual quality of the product. And it's like I get it. It's a guilt tripping supportship way. It does help with sales, but it's like I can't do that. If I generally like you, that just because I like you, the person, doesn't mean I'm gonna like your book. There's no correlation between those, like at all.
Yeah.
At least you took it and learned from it. I don't. Criticism is for losers. People confuse personal preference with criticism. They are not the same. Opinion is not fact. And if you don't like something, that doesn't make it bad. If you like something, that doesn't make it good.
Right. I like Logic always has good comments. I appreciate when he shows up in comments.
Lunchbox Warren. He currently is next week. He's currently going to be at his one of those conventions that indie creators get a chance to go to show off their books. He's a person that I do shows with. We'll be back to doing shows sometime later this month because when he's back from his con convention, I'm leaving to go to the FNT thing like I did last year. So we'll be kind of away from each other for a little bit. But he says you can learn from any kind of negativity. It can hurt at times, but you need to be honest with yourself and grow from it. That's how every great person grows, honestly. Like, look at the biggest figures to ever exist in your life. They've taken look, you can look at Elon Musk, has taken harsh criticism on pretty much anything he's ever done. Just grew from it, became the richest man in the world. Now a lot of us aren't going to be the richest man in the world, obviously, but you can learn something from that and go, okay, maybe everyone that's talking about me in a certain way isn't out to get me. Maybe they actually do want to help me. Think of it that way.
Yeah. Like I said, are you trying? Miss Sparkle took the word right out of my mouth. Is it trying to help or is it trying to destroy?
Mm-hmm.
Who?
He said everything is subjective and there isn't one standard for art or anything creative, just personal preference. Yeah, in my own personal preference, I think that absolute Martian Manhunter artwork looks like crap. And someone said, this is part of the comment. He said, how dare you criticize what this guy did in this book? What do you mean, how dare I? I'm a comic book paying customer. I thought that art looks like shit. And I told people I am not buying it because it looks terrible. I'm not going to support art that looks that bad. Sorry, you have to make better art to convince me to buy that book. Sorry, I'm not paying $4.99 for a 32-page story with ads, and the art looks like some fucking person drawn up with a crayon. Nope, I have no Riz. What the hell? Old Dirty Fatty. I like your name. Hey, some of the lurkers are nice people. Yeah, that's true. Oh, sorry. There was Vin Diesel outside. What are we talking about? Comic books and why AOC is trash. Not even if you were the last person on Earth and a gun was to my head. Don't worry, guys. She would have sex with me. She's just saying that for the cameras. Nobody likes deranged weirdos, and I was gonna start podcasting. You should always do it, though. I always just say do it. There's no reason why you shouldn't do it, or at least you don't want to have that. Like maybe I should have did it, but I too late to do it. Just do it, see if you enjoy it, and then work on improving. That's what I would say.
Also, keep in mind, I did it for like 2.5 years to 3 views per video. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know that feeling. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I just did it because like there was nothing else to do. COVID was happening, and I got through, and it just somebody like RJ from the Fourth Age took a liking to me and basically catapulted me into mediocrity.
Yeah, I tell people, keep in mind, this is not my first show. I've been doing this since like 2020 as well. That's when I first had my first podcast. And
Yeah, I knew you were doing it before me. Yeah.
There was many iterations of this podcast before, but just like DC now, I'm all in on this one. There's no more reboots. There's no more restarts. This is the fresh continuity as you guys see it now. That previous continuity, just ignore that. That was me back in the day. I was more unpolished, you know?
Yep.
Nobody is obligated to take criticism, which is actually an opinion, just personal preference. If somebody is making money, how does an opinion weigh against the success of any product? Just an idea. So how much money something makes doesn't exactly make it a good product, though. But it can be kind of synonymous. It just depends on who you ask, though. It really just that's a case-by-case basis thing, you know?
Right. Look, nobody's going to say that McDonald's is the best hamburger, but they're making money.
Billions, actually.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, I agree. Like, now, the person is like, yeah, I kind of agree. We could improve, but man, I don't want to change the formula. I'm making bank right now. That's valid too.
Yeah. Like
ultimately, it's like, what is your goal? Do you want to be famous? Do you want to be liked? Do you want to be rich? You know what I mean?
Because the second thing you brought up, which is Law's point.
Can I afford to make the next issue?
Yeah.
That to me is, I got a full-time job. You know, I'm gonna have a pension soon. I'm paying my bills. I'm doing okay, but I can't afford to lay out the thousands of dollars to make a comic every issue. So can I afford to make the next issue? That's success for me. And do people like it?
Because the second thing of Logic's point, I like to look at it like this. People are always going to like and dislike something, no matter what it is. Right. But as long as you're making money and being successful, that really is all that matters, though, because, well, at least you can say, hey, I was successful. I made money off what I did. You know, because then again, it's always going to be a case-by-case kind of thing. I'll be honest, I've only read 4 comics, maybe more. Marvel Civil War, I like that one, up to where Cap gets shot, New 52 Justice League, up to the Throne of Atlantis story. Yeah, actually have an omnibus. That is very big.
Nick is new into comics. Nick's a good guy, you know. But he doesn't pretend to be a comic books expert either. He's like, yeah, I'm new and I like it. He's enthusiastic. He's a good guy.
I almost feel sorry for anyone whose first comic is a classic, because over 90% are crap. I do feel like a lot of older comics are a little overrated if you go back and just read some of them. But, you know, again, people were like really, really young when those came out. So that was the thing that kind of brought you joy in your life. And, you know, it's like you're always going to never remember your first love. That's how it's going to work.
Look at it this way. I was in 3rd grade when Star Wars came out. The very first Star Wars movie came out. I still love that movie. I don't care what they did to Star Wars. I still love the first Star Wars movie. Now, I was in college when I saw the prequels, and I hated them. And I work with guys that are 20 years younger than me that love the prequels because they were in 3rd grade when they came out. Mm-hmm. So what am I going to do? Tell him he's wrong? You know what I mean? You like what you like when you like it. You know, and you give me Jar Jar Binks is the worst. Blah blah blah. You know,
that would be true. That character sucks.
If you're in 3rd grade and the prequels came out, you freaking love those movies.
Yeah, yeah. I fully get it that people in my generation like them, because I was there. Star Wars coming out party was there, but those movies are so bad. They're not the third one. The third one is watchable. It's fun. It's so bad it's good. But the first 2 are not good movies. The first 2, Phantom Menace is just carried by Liam Neeson. It's not good. Attack of the Clones is just about as bad as some of those Disney ones. Maybe it's very It's really bad. If you guys recently watched them, they're not good. I can see why people didn't like them. They're bad. They're legitimately awful.
And we forget now. We hated those prequels so much that we bullied George Lucas into selling Star Wars. It's our fault.
And then it's crazy, man. I love how he used the excuse, oh, these are just for kids, as if like that's some excuse to just make shitty movies. What is that? I've never understood that. Oh, I'm making a movie for kids. That means it must just be an absolute piece of crap. Oh, wait, it failed at the box office. Why didn't you stupid parents not go support me? Well, you made a piece of shit. I'm sorry. Make better shit. I don't care if you're making something for a kid. I don't care if you make something for a teenager. You need to make it good, at least watchable. Attack of the Clones is not a watchable movie. That movie sucks ass. It's terrible. I'll never watch a movie again. I actually want to hang myself when I watch that ever again. No way I'll watch that. Awful fucking movie. Who liked that? You want to tell me that's about as better than the Disney ones? No way it wasn't. You're lying to yourself and me. McDonald's employees making more money than comics, right? Yeah, it's true. No, I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding you. I wish I was kidding you. Kirby had to sue. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, Kirby had to sue that. I remember that. Hi, John. All
Hey,
artists
Mark.
reject this. Purchase and enjoy what you like. To each their own. Yeah.
Hey, Mark. Good to see you. Mark started subscribing to my channel Friday night when he saw me on Bancroft. Thank you, Mark.
I was watching a Don Rosa interview, the other good duck artist, and he had to count on selling his original art just to pay bills. Yeah, the comic industry is fucking not good.
If I know what he's talking about, Carl Banks, who's famous for his Uncle Scrooge comics from Disney, he was back when they didn't put the names on the comics, but his signature was he put these little wedges in the eyes, so people always knew, and he was just, they didn't know who he was. They just called him the good duck artist. And then there was the other good duck artist, So, Carl Banks, I think, made money because Disney knew that his art sold. But the other guy, yeah, if he didn't sell his art, he was broke. Selling art became a lucrative career. And now Renzo is going to do more pencils.
That was also in Marvel's thing too. Is artists can sell their original work to Marvel. Marvel, why can't you just pay them a decent, livable wage? How about that? Because people also brought up the royalty thing. So DC, I heard, is a little bit better on royalties, but it's still like, that's the thing is, even if DC is a little bit better, that's just what's that saying? It's like two sides of the same coin. It's not, you're getting basically fucked either way, because we know DC's had issues too.
Well, I just talked to Chuck Dixon about this. Chuck Dixon, we're like, hey, if you could go back to Marvel or DC, who'd you? He goes, I'm not going back to Marvel because Marvel doesn't give you royalties, or because DC gives you what they call participation, and they call it participation instead of royalties because that way they're not legally obligated to royalties. They're legally obligated to give you, but they call it participation, and it's a gift. But he says he still gets checks from creating Bane. From Robin has the Red Bird. That's his motorcycle. He's still
pretty sure he made bank off them using Bane in the Dark Knight Rises.
Right. He says he got more money from the bad Bane movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger than he got because DC just, we're getting lower the participation. You can't sue us. It's a gift.
Yeah.
But Marvel doesn't give you anything.
Mm-hmm. Marvel basically treats it like you should be honored. You work for us.
Well, I mean, John Byrne, people behind his back used to call him the company man because John Byrne, he was making so much money. He commanded his own rate, and things like that. So he was in a position, but he was just like, guys, this is work for hire. I'm going into a building every day and I'm putting in, electrical work. Do I own that electrical work? You know what I mean? Do I get, if they plug in machines that whatever and make money, do I get a percentage of? No, I did work for hire. That's the way, and I understand that, and that's the way. But the problem is, people still to this day think it's great. Think it's a whatever it is, a feather in the cap to work for Marvel. Now that the Marvel movies are tanking, you're going to see more good quality writers who just love the comics come back. Right now, the Mags Visagios and the whatever guy, they're going to leave.
I've heard of that guy in a minute, actually. Yeah.
they want a Netflix deal. That's one of the things that your boy Zach always used to say, and I totally agree with him.
Because there's people out there that are going to be like, well, if they paid them for their work up front, what's the issue? Because that's the problem, guys. They would do more work for you, Marvel, if you paid them like an actual, what they feel like their work was given. If you actually, guys, understand what I'm saying? Like, if they paid them a good, livable wage, they would want to make better work for your company. That's the thing. But Marvel treats it like, well, you should be honored to work for us. You should be honored. You get to write Spider-Man, draw Spider-Man, X-Men, all that stuff. And it's like,
but they're also devaluing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Look at Jack Kirby on the Fantastic Four. They Jack Kirby and Stan, they did 102 issues or 101. I forget the exact number. But look at the last 20 issues. Jack Kirby stopped creating characters and stopped putting his own. He was just an art robot because he started to get a little discouraged. And then he left for DC. And then he started using more and then DC ended up doing the same thing to him. Then he came back. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
If Marvel's going to do that to legends like Jack Kirby, what do you, me and you are going to work for Marvel. How do you think we're going to get treated? But
yeah, well, to be fair, I might get treated a little bit better because I'm black, and they apparently like that now. If you were destroyed by the white man.
You could only write Black Panther and Luke Cage.
Or Miles Morales.
I could write everything else.
People and corporations are looking to replace artists with Skynet, but you can't replace human expression, and that what art is, not factory-made slop. The amount of artists who complain that they can't make livable wages in comics keeps getting swept under the rug. Social media rants, lists, artists begging for Cash App funds. Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it all. Gary Frederick?
Yeah, that was his ghostwriter.
Creator of modern ghostwriter Johnny Blaze, I think that's everyone's favorite ghostwriter, sued Marvel and lost. They wouldn't let him even call himself creator of ghostwriter. That's disgusting. That's actually disgusting.
Yeah, I saw him at a convention. He was like a flasher. He had a jacket, and when people would walk by, he would open up the jacket and said, "I created Ghost Rider," and then he would close it. You know what I mean? Because
legalities, yeah.
Steve. Oh, what's his name? Steve Gerber created Howard the Duck, and he got fired off of Howard the Duck, and and they made movies. I don't even know if he made any money off them. Why do you want to work? People say, what would you like to? I would like to work for Marvel just to do a Fantastic Four story, to get it out of my system, to say I contributed to one of my favorite. But I have no illusions. I wouldn't create new characters. You know what I mean? Like, I want to make my own characters. I'm introducing like 20 new characters in the next issue. I got a lot of characters out. There's no way I'm giving them to Marvel or DC.
Logic said, I'd argue as would most people, it's infinitely harder to write a novel than make a comic book. I think it's opposite, though. I think it's easier to write a novel because people factor on comic books. You have lettering, there's pinups, there's line art, there's the panels themselves, right? There goes the actual issue of writing it. Okay, so you have to convey all the points of writing. I think making comics is harder because technically with writing a novel, you do just kind of sit there and just
I can't answer logic. I never wrote a novel. I
would assume a novel's easier. There's no way it's harder than making a comic book with artists, right?
But I've never attempted to write a novel, so I don't know. The thing about a novel is it's just me and a typewriter. I don't know. But writing the comic is fun and it's easy and it's a joy. It's my favorite part. But everything's compromised. Like I'll send a panel with I'll send a page with 6 panels to Renzo, and I got 9 panels back, and I'm like, that's better than what I did. You know what I mean? So like,
yeah, I would say if you want to get into the space of making your own stuff, I would agree with you that you should write a novel first if you don't have enough money. If you strapped on cash and you kind of want to basically get a property out there, I'd write a novel. There's no real overhead to it.
I don't know if I can. Maybe I'll try.
I don't know if I can, but that I think people, if you're on a budget, I write a novel because with comic books, people factor in how much art costs. The reason why comic books are harder to make, in my opinion, artists cost quite a bit of money. Right. I don't know how much money you charge Renzo for a page.
Like Michael Bancroft, and you're doing it all by yourself. You know what I mean?
Lunchbox Warren, you saw here, he does everything by himself, unless you like those two, or like some people that we know, very select few.
Brian Mao, he writes, he draws, he inks. Now he publishes, and all by himself. Same with Fabrizio Aiello. I can't draw. I show people my drawings, and they giggle, But I don't have any illusions that I'm any good at it.
I don't know if people know how much like comic book artists really technically should make. Like, I don't know how much money Renzo charges per page, but I don't think like the average person, that's what I'm saying. You make a 24-page book and that person wants, let's just say minimum $70 a page. I'm pretty sure you guys can do the number 70 times 24. Yeah, it's way easier writing a novel. You actually just erase all of that. You just have it in your mind. You just write out how many words you want and print the book however you see fit whenever you cross that stage.
Again, I can't argue this.
But just from base knowledge, it would have to be way easier doing a novel. It has to be.
But I will say, everybody who worked on my comic but me made money off it.
That's how it should be. There you go. No one makes money here but the Marvel and DC.
Renzo's got kids. Oscar's got kids. Daniel's, I think he has kids, but these and they're not going to work for me for free. So I pay them first, instantly. I'm so afraid of getting a reputation as the guy who doesn't pay. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, that's bad. Yeah.
My colorist Daniel, he likes to get paid every 5 pages.
Kind of makes sense. I don't see it as bad. That's okay.
No, he likes it because then rather than drips and drabs, and every once in a while he's like, "That was only 4 pages. You paid me too fast." I'm like, "Sorry." I'm apologizing for
like, but if you're at least I would like to, if I ever did this, which I know I never would. This is my ideal world. I would like to be known as the guy who paid fairly decent. That's what I would like to be known as. Because this is the thing is, I think expense comes with the better tier artist your budget would allow. Like if you were, wealthy enough, you would get the best tier artist you can because your money would allow that. I think you should get what your money allows to.
If money was no object, I would still work with the guys I'm working with now. I would just pay them more.
Okay, yeah.
I from my heart, I don't want to work with anybody but Oscar and Renzo and Bill. These guys are great, and Daniel, I enjoy work with them. They're a lot of fun. What I'm picturing in my head is what Renzo's drawing. Like I'll send him I'll send him a page of script and he just draws. I'm like, that is exactly. And if he does change it, it's better. So yeah, if I hit the lottery, Renzo's hitting the lottery. And I keep saying when Mark Miller steals you to draw his next comic book, don't forget about me.
Oh God.
So Logic
because you're looking at it from a cost-based analysis. Right. Well, yeah, most people are, because that's the problem that comes into it. Comic books cost a lot of money to make.
I'll say this: it's easier for me to write a comic book script. It's harder for me to write a short story, and I've never attempted a novel. So I think I'm on Logic's side on that one.
I'm just saying the cost barrier is going to be most people's reasons, but
it's funny that you because whenever I criticize a movie, I'm the harshest about the story than I am about. I'll forgive bad acting. I'll forgive that they couldn't hire a good actor. I'll forgive special effects, but the writing to me, it's just a guy in a typewriter. The story should be good before should especially like $100 million blockbuster movie. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I'm the harshest about the writing for movies and comics. I'll forgive, a perspective mistake in a comic book too, or a coloring error.
This is something that I've talked about with Lunchbox Warren too. Like, you remember when I was doing all of those one-on-ones with a lot of those indie creators and everything, I never got any appreciation for it. Very rarely was I actually thanked for having someone come on and talk about their books. But this thing is, people kind of do that looking for validation. Like, man, I want people to thank me for what I did. I never did it for that. I was just assuming, just based off of how many I did, that people be like, man, this is the go-to guy, to like talk to you about your book. But didn't happen. And I was like, you know what? Probably should have closed the doors off to a lot of that and just only want the people on that had the best ways of interacting on the show. The reason why I think some people cancel their books because you have them on shows. No offense. Some people just can't. Some people are not good at having a conversation. Like they never had a conversation. They never kind of like vocalize their thoughts out.
I agree with you, but I'm going to say the thing about comic books is it's a solo activity.
That's true. Yeah.
Right. When you buy your comic books, you're not sitting there in the park with a whole bunch of people in a kumbaya circle reading comic books. You're sitting in that chair by yourself reading it. Now, the people who create the comic books are also sitting in a chair reading it. And for most of American, the comic book fan has been a socially awkward nerd. Like the football guys, they're all hanging out together. They're playing together. You can't play football by yourself. So comic books are a solo activity. And I think introverted people, maybe socially awkward people are attracted to it. So I've had a lot of people that like, they don't want to come on my channel, not because they dislike me. It's just that they're nervous to talk. You know what I mean? They don't like the camera, and I've had a couple of people, they've gotten a little better. I like to think that I put people on ease when they're on my channel, that the first time they're like, and I'm drawing a conversation out of them. I'm like pulling, because they're, so I'm going to say most people, they only do it like after it. People are like, oh man, that was you made it easy for me, but they didn't want to do it. It's just the necessity of the way it is now to get out to the audience. If you're an independent comic book guy, how do people know? How do people know who you are? Yeah, comics is a lonely job. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, because I kind of come from, well, the podcasting side first. Whenever someone essentially just gives one word answers, or they just can't have a conversation at all, and it feels like they don't even care if they're here or not. The reason why, I'll just tell people right now, I'm just being honest with you, because I'm always honest anyway. That's probably a fault of mine. I'm just too honest. The reason why I ended the shows that I did when you guys saw them on is because I'm not going to sit here and waste the already small, valuable time that I have on someone that doesn't want to be here, doesn't have a conversation, and doesn't feel like they care about their book. I don't care if you're tired. I do this when I don't really do this when I'm tired. I always just love doing it. So I'm always happy when I do this, but I'm not wasting my time doing this. If you don't want to do it, I don't want to do it. I'm leaving. And I'll just make up some story about my internet being out, which is my internet's never out. I just lie about that. I just edit it. And then I'll say, yeah, we'll do it again. And I never do, because I'm not wasting my time. How about this? I can do this. Get a better personality, figure out how to talk to people, and then you can come back on. Because then we can have a conversation and entertain people, because you do this for entertainment, right? No one wants to sit here and have me, John, what's your favorite Marvel character? Well, I like, I think the Thing is cool. Why you like him? I don't know. He's orange. Like, how is that entertaining for people? That's stupid. That's trash.
I like talking to people. Like, if I'm talking to people on the New York City subways, I'm talking to people at bus stops, I'm talking to people at work. You're in an elevator with me. We're having a conversation. By the time the door opens, we're friends. I'm not even joking. My wife's still making fun of me. I got invited to a barbecue on the supermarket checkout line because we were just talking about andouille sausages. My wife's like, you met some strange man at the supermarket talking about sausages. Now you're going to go to his house. She goes, do I have to start worrying? You know what I mean? That's the way. The story, I don't think I'm telling tales out of school, but J.M. DeMatteis was on my channel, and he's crowdfunding comics. They're wonderful comics. They're on Kickstarter right now. The guy's a pro. He wrote comics for 40 years. He came on my channel, and he was at the beginning, he was on my channel twice. The first time he was borderline hostile, and you can actually see him lightening up. Towards the end of the conversation, we ended afterwards. He's like, that was good. He goes, I don't like doing this. He goes, I want to apologize. I was nervous. I was kind of hostile. He goes, but I'll come back anytime you want. Because he's a guy who just wants to sit in his house and type. He doesn't want to be on camera. He wants to write comic books. And like, do you think Steve Ditko would do this?
Jonathan Hickman doesn't. Jonathan Hickman doesn't do interviews at all.
Right.
Nothing. He just prefers to write the books and go over it. But the thing is, in the indie space, people have to understand. I think people confuse the two. The reason why, like, Jonathan Hickman doesn't have to do interviews, because his name is going to sell pretty much anything his name's on.
He doesn't need to.
Yeah, we're like buttfuck nobodies. No one knows who we are. We have to sell ourselves. There's like, the kids say nowadays there's levels to this. Well, you're a buttfuck nobody, and this is Jonathan Hickman. Okay, there's a little bit difference to that. Like,
watch 5 years from now when all the editors are rotated out of Marvel and nobody's hiring Jonathan Hickman, and then he's not going to come on your channel. You know what I mean?
Maybe he does a Kickstarter. I mean, I've seen people that have been on Batman and Spider-Man. People doing, like, that guy James Tynion IV, who really criticized just the way DC was treating him. He did his own Kickstarter recently. Guys, I just don't believe, like, if you wrote on Batman, you were writing on Batman, one of the biggest characters ever made in history.
If you're writing Batman, you're at the top of the comic book pyramid.
Yeah. How are you? Like, I would assume you get paid good money, though. I would just assume that because it's Batman, but it doesn't work that way in comic books. It just doesn't work that way at all. Why? What?
How did his Kickstarter do?
Oh, I have to go check. Apparently he was angry it didn't do better, from what I remember.
Yeah, well, everybody's angry that Kickstarter doesn't do better,
EBS? No, I'm just kidding. Good Lord. I had to do it. The joke was there. What's up, Warren? He's watching from work. Maybe better get off work, you son of a bitch. I was there for J.M. DeMatteis' interview.
Yeah, J.M. DeMatteis, yeah. I love J.M. DeMatteis. He's like, I just love his work. I think my favorite thing that he did was the Brooklyn Dreams. Oh, yeah, the Mark Miller interview was so much fun.
John said he was going to message Mark Miller for me to get him on the show. He never did. He left me.
Oh, I did. He said he didn't want to come on your channel because you're black.
Oh, God. I knew it. He's European. I figured it. He's European. They hate black people, apparently. Good Lord. I still can't believe that guy created a series called Kick-Ass. The art was done by John Romita Jr., I think.
Yeah.
And his fucking main character's name is Big Daddy. You know the names? Hit Girl, Big Daddy, Mother Russia. What the fuck was this guy on when he made those characters?
And it's awesome. I love.
Yeah.
I'm rereading all the. I have a big stack of Mark Miller comics that I didn't read, so I'm starting at the beginning and I'm reading them in order. He actually has a reading order suggestion list. I forgot how much fun Kick-Ass was. I was laughing reading it. It is so good. And how does he? This guy's from Glasgow, Scotland, and he gets like the New York banter so good. He's so good. What do we got? We got Stream of God here. How you doing?
John Douglas is mainstream now. He went viral on Twitter. You know what's crazy? John's post got like 18 million views on Twitter, and he only got paid $60. Imagine that. You're actually monetized on Twitter for your biggest thing ever, and you get paid $60. That's crazy. What is this platform? God, when people think you get monetized on these platforms, people think you're rich. It's like, no, guys, when I was doing it big on YouTube, I would make like $200 a month max.
Wow, I was like more than me.
I was getting like 150 maybe.
I make almost enough to pay for StreamYard.
Wait, did they change the payout threshold? The payout threshold was $100. Did they lower it?
It's still $100.
One time I got $99.99, and I get paid out to the next, because if you missed the threshold, they just total it in for the following month. Oh my God, I hate that so much. Oh Lord.
You know, that doesn't bother me. I'd rather get paid $100 than $17.
That's true. Yeah. It feels like it's way more worth. Independent artists, I mean, I would add writers to your comment too, need to market themselves, but refuse to do so. Yet they attack one guy because he built an audience by marketing himself online for years through social media. Yeah, I don't get that. I think this is one of those, it's going to sound like, I'm going to sound like a new age person. This is where that mindset of like changing with the times comes. I understand maybe from back then you didn't need to do that. Maybe you go on like maybe make like a blog site. Maybe you get on like a different way to monetize yourself, like radio or whatever. Times have changed. Like you need to adjust with the times in some ways. I'm not saying change your whole moral outlook or view on things. Like don't start believing that men can be women and women can be men. Not like that, but like you have to change with some stuff. You can't just always be stuck in a way of like doing what you need, because it just might be outdated. Like imagine, do you guys still see people with flip phones? When I see someone with a flip phone, I know that person's just like back in their day, they like this. I know one person with a flip phone. One. You know people had smartphones? Everyone. You know, maybe your parents still have flip phones. Maybe they do. That's crazy if they do. But that's just me. Society is cooked. Yep. You don't have money. What do you mean? What do you mean? I'll just make an OnlyFans.
I tell you this, OnlyFans is going to be gutted because it's going to be all AI girls within like 2 or 3 years.
Maybe should Trump tariff AI girls? Not AI girls. Oh my God, OnlyFans. What if Trump tariffs OnlyFans?
Well,
holy shit.
Are they in America? I don't know.
All right. So last few things I want to ask you before we head out of here is New York sucks, and it still sucks.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed, right? It's still
I was joking, but I on Twitter I've been putting up pictures of because I'm working under Manhattan through the tunnels.
Yeah.
And so every once in a while I'm like, this is pretty cool, and I'll take a picture of it. And what a couple of years ago, about 6-7 years ago, I was really down below Manhattan, and it was like the Mole Man's area. You know, and I should have taken more pictures. I'm mad at myself that I didn't take more pictures back there. So I'm thinking of making like another Twitter channel. It can't be anonymous because it's just called New York is Gross. And everything disgusting in New York, I want to take pictures of and just put it. Like the other day, there's just puke up and down the subway stairs. And I'm getting off at 6 o'clock in the morning out of the subway, going to work. And, you know, at 3:30, I'm coming out of work and that puke is still on the subway stairs. You know, it's just like, do you think Tokyo would have that? You know, a guy laying on the floor with his pants out. I'm cock and balls just right there. You know, do you think that's in Tokyo subway stations? And then I get to the turnstile, I swipe, it takes my money, but the turnstile's broken. Mm-hmm. And who do I complain to? Do I jump the turnstile? You know, I'm going to get arrested. You know, so I have to swipe again at a different. Just New York is gross. It's a lost city. It's, you know, I can't wait to retire and get out of New York. You know, and then Friday, I'm going to work. I got my phone. I'm like checking over you know, I'm going to launch Friday night, so I'm all in a good mood. I'm giving the campaign page a once over. I sit on the subway, and this big homeless black guy sits next to me, starts staring at me, and goes, I'm going to kill all white people. He goes, I'm going to kill all white men, and they're women too. And I'm like, all right, this is gonna happen. I put my phone in my pocket, put my glasses away, and I just stared at him. And I look, I'm the only white guy on the. I was like, I ain't got no backup, so I just stared at this guy until he just got off the train. Because like, if I got up and moved, I put my back to this guy. This is what I'm dealing with in Manhattan every day. Manhattan sucks. It's not glamorous. It's not the greatest city in the world. It sucks. Manhattan is gross. So there you go. Did I answer your question?
Oh no, you're good. Yeah. Oh my man. I'll tell people this: be wary of helping homeless people. If you know anything about helping homeless people from the stories we've heard, those people are not as innocent and nice and sweet as you think to be. There's one that happened in Texas where a white guy just wanted to give some guy some money, ended up stabbing him in the cheek, and then hijacked his car and took it to a strip club. And yes, it was a black man because they just always cause crime. That's just what they do. It's just what it is. Statistics prove it. Just saying, helping homeless people, I would steer clear of them sometimes.
When I worked way deep in Manhattan, like right now, I'm just below the buildings. There's networks of tunnels, like utility tunnels that connect the buildings. I was working below the subway line. So like the subway would come, the roof would.
Yeah.
There is homeless people that live. There's colonies of homeless people that live down there, and we would, the foreman would come down with money and give them money. You guys, why don't you, we're going to hire you guys to protect our equipment because we would have heavy equipment down there. Basically, we were paying them not to pee all over our equipment because that's what they would do, and the homeless people knew that. We're going to pee all over your equipment and then you're all going to get hepatitis. So here you go. We had to factor that in as the estimate to get the job done. Bribes for the homeless, because New York is gross.
Oh, recently, just one more thing before we go to the final things, which is Emma Frost. As you guys know, Emma Frost, the perennially sexy white queen. That's one of my favorite white queens of all time. Man, she's just very, very attractive. Had a new skin come out for the game Marvel Rivals that has become a household thing for a lot of people. It's one of the few things Marvel's done right recently is make this game, and a lot of people like it, which is awesome. A bunch of people just are surprised she looks this way. But a lot of you guys, even if you don't know her from comic books, did you guys not see what she was wearing in First Class?
Her first appearance, she was wearing a girdle.
Character's always dressed provocatively, always.
And people forget. Okay, in Chris Claremont, John Byrne, Terry Austin, they created the Hellfire Club,
which they still use to this day too.
She was a mind control telepath being, and what did they do? It was a sex club, and she procured women for the sex club. She pretended she was Ghislaine Maxwell of the Marvel Universe. That Sebastian Shaw was the whatever his name is, Jeffrey Epstein. She and when Kitty Pryde met Karen Frost for the first time, said she's looking at me like I'm something good to eat. Like right away, and Kitty Pryde was 13 years old at that point, and she got the skeeves. And Emma Frost, it was not subtle. It was hitting you over the head that if Kitty Pryde had said no to the X-Men and went to the Hellfire Club, she would have had a different story. She is a bad person. And then everybody's like, yeah, she joined the X-Men. Well, she's got mind control powers. If I was to write the X-Men, they would do like a deep dive. They would be like if I was to mind control people in the way I think and write, there would be some sort of like mental scarring. You know what I mean? Like or like editing of how in Dumbledore said this memory's been edited and poorly. Like it would be like that. Like Xavier or Jean Grey would be like, Scott, you never loved Emma Frost. You've been manipulated. You know what I mean? Things like that. Because she is a bad manipulator. She's a human trafficker. She's a bad person. And the fact that all the X-Men go to Hellfire galas in modern Marvel just shows me that the X-Men are villains. Captain America is not wearing a suit and going to Jeffrey Epstein's island. Not the Captain America that I know and grew up with and Jack Kirby created, but that's what the Hellfire Club is. And these people at Marvel Comics, they don't know the history. They don't respect and they're a bunch of freaky weirdos that don't even understand why guys like me are getting upset of what they're doing to our characters. So how was that? Did that answer your question? Was that
No,
a rant?
I just find it crazy how people will say she doesn't look like this from the comic books.
Yes,
Even
she
if you
does.
didn't even know what the comic books were, you can pull up images where she's always looked like a whore. This is not like you don't have to have extensive knowledge of this. People just fake. It's so I just don't get it. It's just that's
Also,
actually what I call rage baiting.
If you want to get into a real deep dive, the Hellfire Club was based on an episode of the Avengers, the old English TV show with Emma Peel. That's why Emma Frost is named Emma, because she's named after Emma Peel. And they wore the Laundry Club, and they were infiltrating basically a human trafficking organization. You know, they were drawn. The members of the Hellfire were drawn to look like the characters from that episode. Chris Claremont, you know, obviously remembered that episode and put it into the comic books. They are, you know, it's no coincidence. Emma Peel, Emma Frost dressed the same way as they did. And Jean Grey actually looks like Emma Peel from that episode. You know,
Also true. Very, very attractive whore. God, man,
Yeah.
she is so pretty. If she was, remember in First Class? People, I watched First Class. Remember in the movie, she manipulated a guy that she was getting naked in front of him, only to turn out he was just
he was
fucking,
just diddling
off.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, you know, there's a thing with attractive women. They can make you think and go crazy. But for the last things I'll ask you before we wrap it up here, make sure you guys do get Hero Tales issue number 2. But on Fund My Comic, if you missed out on issue 1 and you want to do things in order, kind of like myself, you can actually back on there a tier where you can get both books bundled together. And that would cost you like $30. So it's like $10 shipping anyway. So $30
and you can get add-ons, and the add-ons have you know, but yeah, you know, the add-ons are for if you buy the main tier, you can get add-ons of covers that you want and things like that, or additional copies. So I had a little bug when we launched because I can't anticipate everything, but it's fixed now. If you want something and you don't see it, email me, message me. You know, I'm reasonable. You know, it's good. If anything, the art is beautiful. If anything, the art is beautiful.
Yeah. I've noticed there's an improvement between the interior panels I saw in number 1 compared to number 2.
Renzo is getting better and better and better. Yeah, like I said, I only want to work with Renzo. What's the link? I put the link in the private chat. Can you put the link in the public chat, please?
Oh yeah, but it's Miss Sparkles, so I don't really want to do it either.
My favorite commenter. She's
no, throw her away. She's white. Ugh, good lord. There you guys go. If you guys are watching from my side, I dropped a link in the public chat here just for a moment. And also, people, if you want to get into comic books, it's way easier to do it now than ever before in some areas. So that's what I tell people. Like just how you Google things. Okay, Google top 10. Let's start. It's very small. Google top 5 best Batman stories. Grab a few lists, buy a few of the books, and see which one you go for.
Talking about getting into to make. Okay. Sorry.
You know? You're fine. You're fine. It's one of those things where if you want to start small, but kind of do it in the way you would do it for other things. You know, how do you look up how to cook something? You probably go to YouTube and look up how to cook something. Try it with comic books, you know? Also, there's affordable options out there that DC and Marvel are doing. I don't want to fucking praise Marvel, but they are doing some affordable options along with DC. So, you know, there's always ways of getting in at an affordable rate you yourself can enjoy. Also, there's Amazon. They sell books by the cheapest. People think I paid top dollar. No. Most of these books I bought have been off Amazon for like various price. Let's just say.
You know what else I recommend? Go to a comic book store. Go to the dollar bin.
True, you can go your collection there.
Yeah, bring $20. Just get 20 random comics that look cool to you. And if you don't like them, they were $1. You know, and then if you do like them, that'll give you. Oh wow. Marvel 2-in-1 36. I like this, so I'm gonna see if I could get Marvel 2-in-1 37.
If you like collected editions, there's trade paperbacks. There's trade paperbacks that collect a lot of stories. You can do that because I know some people you like said earlier with your book, you want them to have a full story. Some people like full stories. I know people out there that like big books. You can get omnibuses of a lot of things like this. There's
Miss Sparkle. My channel is called John's Long Box on YouTube. I love Miss Sparkle. She's asking all the important questions.
Dang it. You don't get to love her. God.
I'm already married. I'm loving her in a
Oh no, not you. I just have to give her to Warren, Lunchbox Warren.
and Nick of Time is saying, wait, what about Professor X? He has mind powers. Why I never said mind powers makes you evil. I'm saying Emma Frost,
she uses hers
with mind powers. She's a manipulator and stuff like Captain America, well, he doesn't have super strength, but Superman has super strength. So does the Rhino. It doesn't mean that they're evil because they have super strength. It's what you do with the powers. So, Nick, just because you have mind powers doesn't make you evil. Like, well, Jean Grey did turn evil. But I think if you had the ability to control people's mind, I think that is
like, think of it like Flash and Reverse Flash. Reverse Flash uses his speed for evil. Barry uses his for good. Just because you have a certain power doesn't automatically make you a bad person per se. It just depends on what you do with powers.
But just imagine if you had the power to override people's free will. To me, that's a power that is just like the power to lift boulders. That's pretty cool. But you're not really tempted to go, like, you're not just going to throw a rock and smash people, but you got the power to alter people's will. So not every day I think the temptation to use it in a small way, and then next thing you know, 20 years later, you're an evil villain. That to me, there's certain powers that are bad guy powers, and mind control is a bad guy power. You know,
also,
is a bad guy power.
Epic Collections. I know you guys always get told the best stuff is the older stuff. So with Marvel specifically, and DC's doing this with the finest books, Marvel Comics has Epic Collections where you can essentially get a character's first appearance or wherever they first appear in an Epic Collection Volume 1, and it does build up over time. So the Volume 1s go between Volume 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The problem with Epic Collections and Masterworks is that they sometimes don't actually update the books as far as like getting them new entries. So you have Masterworks, you have Epic Collections, you have the Marvel Premiere Collections that just started. There's ways of getting into books. Never let this idea that it's too big and it's so grand you can't get in books. Don't do that. That's stupid. Then if you use that logic, you'll never get new into anything. You'll never do anything in life if you think it's too big, right? Also, what I recommend is there's a Chris Claremont documentary on YouTube that's free to watch. I think watching that is good. There's an Image Comic one that's free. It's not free on YouTube. It's free with ads. But yeah, last week was actually, man, anything you have big plans coming up in 2025 that you want to let the audience know about?
I just
this is also not true.
Yeah, that's the comment that made me laugh.
Not true at all.
Her comment just, I was reading that while you were talking and trying not to laugh. So what were you saying?
No, do you have anything planned coming up in 2025 beside this that you want to let people know about?
I have a lot riding on issue number 2. Like I said, my model is I laid out all the money for issue number 1. So whatever money I made for issue number 1 is the budget for issue number 2. You know what I mean? So if this does pretty good, I want to make the Patriarch number 1, and the Patriarch number 1, it will be my next comic, and it'll be the origin of the Patriarch. But I also have 2 other comics that are in the works that have nothing to do with Heroic Tales. One of them is called Eddie is Doomed. Eddie is Doomed is it's going to be drawn by Tonic Mole of Saving the World and Oscar Carano, who's my colorist, and it's going to be about a 35-year-old comic book collector in 1986 who has to leave his parents' basement because his father wants to retire and move to Florida. So Eddie's world is ending. The world, he grew up in that bedroom. He has to move. And then he goes to the comic book store, and his beloved comic book company is ending its continuity. So it's Love and Rockets meets Crisis on Infinite Earths. And oh my God, it's going to be so good. I don't have a time frame on that because Tonic Mole is working on his own comics. So, when he'll give me a page and then he'll do his stuff. He'll give me a page. And another thing I'm working on is I'm very vague on this on purpose, but it's a historical mixed with a mythological story. I'm really excited. I don't want to talk about it because I honestly think it's so good somebody will steal it and do it before me. So I'm gonna put out a couple of teasers after Heroic Tales is done, and that way I could say, dude, I'm working on it. You know what I mean? It's going to be good. So I got a lot of things, but it can only happen if you guys support Heroic Tales too. I got a lot, so, and I think Heroic Tales 2 is so much better than Heroic Tales 1. That's my goal, is every issue to be better and better and better. You guys let me know. I do respond to criticism. Like I said, there was like an hour-long video criticizing me, and my response was, yeah, you're absolutely right. Everything he said was 100% correct. And that person was like, what? What do you want me to say? You thought about it, and you made sense. Another person made like a 20-minute video about me. That's not right. So whatever. I have planned to go. Does Superman have robot servants in the comics? Yes, he does. He does. He has robot servants throughout the Silver Age, and he also has robot servants now in the modern age. The design of the robots are always different, but yes, he has robot servants.
Yes, he does have plans and goals, just like myself. Last thing I'll ask you, man, is there any shout outs you want to give to anyone in particular, and anything else you want to say before we end the show?
Oh yeah. Renzo is also working on Aaron Sparrow's Kneel Before Doom face, so support that. I got to support my buddy Renzo. He's such a good artist. And Oscar Creno is also the colorist on that. It looks freaking awesome. I want to thank all the guys who have been with me. You know, like Matt Barr has a page in Heroic Tales 1. He also has a page in Heroic Tales 2. He's doing an ad. It's his sea hippie ads. Sea hippies instead of sea monkeys is hysterical. It's so good. He's got another page. Brian Bow has been with me from the beginning. He did a page in Heroic Tales. You know what's funny? He did like a Fun Factory ad. People thought it was real. They're like, why did he just reprint? I'm like, yeah, obviously he didn't read it because it's goofy. It's goofy products. And Fabrizio Aiello, who does Horace H. Hoover, he's doing another ad. He did the Hostess Cupcake ad in Heroic Tales #1. I got to shout those guys out. Luke Stone, the guy behind Fund My Comic. Without him, this comic wouldn't be made. I'm seeing a pattern now. The day before I launch, I call Luke Stone in a manic, crazy. Oh my God, this is a problem we got to fix. And Luke's like, calm down, John. Calm down, you know, and he gets me out of my spiral. So I got to put him as a support for helping me out. You can't get that kind of service from Kickstarter and Indiegogo, you know, a personal coach when you're freaking out. I look pretty calm, but the day before I seem to have that freak out, and then I call Luke and he's like, calm down, John, we got it. I don't. What else to say? So I got a bunch of comics coming down the pike. I got a whole world of stories. I've been basically writing Heroic Tales for 20 years. You know, through my role playing game. So it's based on my role playing game, which is a superhero role playing game called Villains and Vigilantes. Here's the badge for Villains and Vigilantes. You know, I actually called the owner of Villains and Vigilantes, got his permission to use their logo, and he's like, yeah, when you get a couple comics under your belt, we'll make like a supplement for the role playing game. And I was like, oh my God, that would be so much fun. So yeah, I got a lot of plans, but like I said, I need your support. I you know, it costs, unfortunately, it costs a lot of money to make comics.
Yeah, you know, I just wish people would understand this about indie comics. There's a bunch of weirdos here. These people are crazy. Let's just say that. But it is kind of fun, always deep diving and talking to people that actually can hold a conversation and actually can talk like normal human beings. It feels like certain comic book people are just deranged weirdos who literally have never even probably looked at.
Like I said, I'm pretty forgiving on that because it's a solo activity, and it's traditionally, back in the 50s, everybody was reading comic books and everybody was laying on the ground and trading. But somewhere in the 70s, it became a hobby for the outcasts. You know, that's why the X-Men did so good. The X-Men were the excluded. You know, the X-Men were the people forgotten by society, and everybody at one point feels that they're the X-Men. You know what I mean? That's why the X-Men was so good when they said mutants, because they didn't exist. So therefore it could be anybody. You know, I'm an outcast because I'm gay, or I'm an outcast because I'm from a foreign country, or I'm an outcast because I have a physical disability or a mental disability, or I'm an outcast because I feel like an outcast because I'm going through puberty in my, you know what I mean? That's the brilliance of the X-Men. Now, when they basically outright say it's for gay and trans, it's sinking the franchise. Once you name it as this, everybody else is like, well, it's not for me now. You know, like Jim Shooter was just like, yeah, the X-Men, it's for everybody. Because at one point, everybody feels like the outcast. Logic is always asking good question. Did I like to do James Gunn Superman? I didn't see it yet.
5-minute previews, I just feel like personally that's just so much for a preview. I understand what he's trying to do with it, but I just feel like that would kind of, ugh. dude, not like a damage to the movie for me, but I think it's just too much. Like 5-minute preview, that's a lot.
I'm gonna watch it because I love Superman. I still love Superman. I want Superman to be an old-fashioned Boy Scout. That's the way he works best, if you ask me. And my character, the Patriarch, is an homage to Superman. You know, what if Superman did get married and start having kids and stuff?
But the last good thing Superman I watched was Superman and Lois, and that was really good. I do.
Oh, it was good.
Very good.
I've been burnt before. Like we were talking earlier, like Star Wars, I'm not interested anymore. They destroyed it. Star Trek destroyed it. Doctor Who, they destroyed it. Marvel, they determined to alienate me. So like, I don't want to watch the James Gunn strip because I'm not interested. Like what I want is the movie to be released and be awesome, and then I'm pleasantly surprised. I don't want to hate it. I'm not cheering for it to be bad. Like I want Cyberfrog 4 to be a good comic. I want Ripper Isom #4 to be a good comic. I want all the comics to be good. Why would I want the comics to be bad? I want all the movies to be good. But at the same time, I know I've been burnt, so I'm not going to salivate and watch the trailers because thus therein lies madness. You know what I mean? And then argue with people. I don't know. I saw a clip of him like getting burnt by sunlight. I don't know what the context is. I didn't watch this. I didn't know it was a 5 minutes clip. So there you go. I could rant the grave forever.
You're fine, man. But yeah, thank you guys for checking out this episode of the MSK Show. It was good to talk to John again for a second appearance. Next time he's on, he'll be done with fulfilling Heroic Tales issue #2 by the time you have another one-on-one. So, man, things have come a long way. And as people know, I'm going to just get more comic books and read them. And hey, I told you before, I don't even have to do reviews with either Warren or Savage Dad or Laps. Sometimes I might just like review a book by myself, just go through it like that. But, I did it before and have to make sure I just keeping up with consistently doing that. So hopefully you guys have a great rest of your weekend and